Today, we are gonna introduce a master of Chinese literati painting in Ming Dynasty, and also take a glimpse into the Chinese garden art. Wen Zhengming, more commonly known in modern TV series as one of the four talents of Jiangnan, in those TV series, he usually acts as a very good friend of Tang Bohu, who is the leader of the four masters of Jiangnan. However, Wen Zhengming himself is arguably the leading master of Wu school of literati painting and undoubtedly the most famous artist of the 16th century China. Born into a scholarly family that prospered in the city of Suzhou, Wen Zhengming was tutored by some of the most illustrious members of that society. For example, Wu Kuan, for example, Shen Zhou, who was a leading artist before Wen Zhengming. And in Wen Zhengming's life, he tried and failed the provincial civil service examination 10 times before being granted an honorary appointment to the Hanling Academy in Beijing in 1523. These illusions with the official life, when retired from the government service after only 3 years, returning to Suzhou, where he spent his remaining 32 years painting, practicing calligraphy, and becoming one of the leading cultural figures of the city. Wen Zhengming painted Living Loft, Master Liu's Retreat, in 1543 for his friend Liu Ling, which is now shown in the screen. Lin, then at the age of 69, had retired from government service, but had not yet built a home suitable for his new life. In his painting, Wen presents an idealized vision of life in retirement, separated from the outside world by a stream and rustic wall. Two friends enjoy each other's company in a two-story hall that is further isolated by a grove of tall trees. The friends face each other beside the balustrade at the front of the upper story. Behind them, an archaic tripod vessel, several volumes of books, and two other objects, perhaps an incense burner and a box of incense, have been set out on an elegant red lacquered table. A large unpainted screen serves as a room divider. But the artist has thoughtfully given us a glimpse behind the screen from the side window. There, heavy curtains have been pulled back to reveal a bookshelf stacked with books and scrolls. A servant has risen from stool and preparing wine for the two scholars. He carries the cups of wine on a red lacquer tray. The roofline and balustrade of the hall have been drawn with the aid of a straight edge, but Wen's completely disinterested in spatial logic. It's clear from the angle at which the rear balustrade and the hall railing intersects in a strange angle. The lower story of the hall is almost completely hidden from the view by the dense screen of trees. The rough, twisted bark and densely clustered foliage identify most of these trees as a kind of cypress and cedar, a species of tree that Wen particularly admired and often incorporated into his paintings. The thick foliage of these evergreens stands in sharp contrast to the pair of bare willows that grow from the foreground bank. The outstretched branches of the willow frame a view of the front gate, which has been left open to welcome other guests. The gate and the bridge that spans the stream are symbolic transitions between the private realm of the garden and the wood beyond. The screening wall of the mountains behind the hall performs a similar function and indicates that Liu's place of retirement has been well situated geometrically at the base of a hill along the edge of a swiftly flow watercourse. And in this accompanying poem, one elaborates on the pleasure of life in such a pavilion. It can be translated as, immortals have always delighted in pavilion living, windows open on 8 sides, eyebrows smiling. Okay, here. Up above, towers and halls well up. Down below, clouds and thunder are vaguely sensed. Reclining on a dais, a glimpse of Japan, leaning on a balustrade, the site of Manchuria, while worldly affairs shift and change, in their midst a lofty man is at ease. Liuling, a native Anren, Hunan province, is known as one of the 5 Hunan recluses, together with Guling and Xu Zhenqing, both of whom were also acquaintances with Wen Zhengming. He was known as one of the 3 talents east of the river. It is recorded in the Ming history that Liuling, unable to realize his own home, suspended a bamboo sedan chair from a beam and reclining on it, called it the Spirit Pavilion, 神楼. It's also recorded that Wen did a painting to bequeath to Mr. Liu. An inscription by Liuling on a piece of calligraphy by Shen Zhou, dated 1497, suggests that he had long been familiar with the leading members of the Suzhou Literati culture. While the last painting may be depicting an unbuilt ideal garden of Mr. Liu, Wen Zhengming has a lot of other paintings on how the actual Chinese gardens are and how they embody the thoughts of Chinese literati. In Ming Dynasty, the garden became the focus of an alternative lifestyle that celebrated quiet, contemplation, and literary pursuits, often in the company of like-minded friends. Traditional Chinese gardens were meant to evoke a feeling of being in the larger natural world, so that the occupant could capture the sensations of wandering through the landscape. Compositions of Chinese rocks were revealed as mountain ranges and towering peaks. Miniature trees and bushes suggested ancient trees and forests, and small ponds or springs represent the mighty rivers and oceans. In other words, Chinese gardens represented the larger world of nature in microcosm. Masses of colorful cultivated blossoms, flower beds of regular geometric shape, and singular vistas, such as the formal gardens at Versailles, were all avoided in keeping with the goal of recreating actual landscapes. Instead, many aspects of a Chinese garden are revealed one at a time. The garden scenery is consistently altered by the shifting effects of light and the seasons, which form an important part of one's experience of garden and help engage all the senses, not just sight. One of the most famous gardens is called Zhuozhengyuan, which can be translated as the Garden of the Inept Administrator. It was built on the site of an ancient temple in Suzhou by the censor Wang Xianchen. In 1527, after an unhappy stay in Beijing, the artist Wen Zhengming returned to Suzhou, where he was given a studio in the garden. So in an album, Wen painted 31 views of the site, which accompanied by a poem and a descriptive note. And to take a look at these works, we can first look at the first leaf of this album. In this image, the artist draws us into the garden by leading us through the gate across the so-called Little Rainbow Bridge, like here. And the elements were visible from the distance. Now let's move to the third leaf. Here we can see the artist leading us on a zigzag path into a small private hall in which the gentlemen are contemplating on the bamboo grove and the crane, a famous garden pet. You can join them for a moment in the companionable meditation. Now let's go to the fourth leaf. A gentleman in his pavilion looks up from his reading and gazes out at a garden. Perhaps he's musing on the text in front of him, allowing the garden to refresh his spirit. The so-called strange rock in front of the painting may represent the scholar's alter ego. Naturally eroded, the rock not only symbolizes the idea of uniqueness, but also an embodiment of what the Chinese call qi, the energy that courses through the universe. The banana plants and palms are also inspiration of many other Chinese gardens. In another leaf of this painting, we can see that it's an image of a simplified actual structure as it appears here. So this is actual structure. And Wen Zhengming's painting here actually greatly simplifies the actual architecture and makes it appear rustic and quaint rather than attempting to describe accurately the imposing columns and massive tile roofs of the original. So Wen Zhengming, through this way, basically wanna hide himself from skillful abilities, and he tried to paint without technical skills, like really craft people. So he also want to convey himself in such a naive and rustic manner to simplify his own character of being simple and being back to nature. In the same way, the living aloft, like the last painting, it also uses dry brushwork and a pale palette to evoke the ideal of a scholarly retreat rather than any architectural reality. So now we can see, from Wen Zhengming's painting, we can take a glimpse into the art of the Ming Dynasty and also grasp an idea of how literates embody their own spirit in garden and make the garden a mini cosmos.